Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to direct my questions to Mr. Party. Mr. Party, I think what we've seen sort of on display in some of the comments made today at this meeting is a certain logic that has informed the legislation that you've referenced, Bill C-11, C-18, C-63. And that logic seems to be people pointing to problems in society, suggesting that the expansion of the federal bureaucracy is somehow the necessary solution to those problems, not really making a case for the efficacy of that bureaucracy, but nonetheless saying that the bureaucracy must grow and that the Canadian taxpayer must pay for that growth. I'd like for you to speak to your concerns related to the expansion of the federal bureaucracy, and in particular, I'm referencing some of your writing on the growth of the administrative state.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that question. I agree with the premise of your question 100%. We have mangled the idea of rights, such as those in the Charter of Rights. They are supposed to be negative rights, meaning that they are rights against government interference. If the government does not interfere with you, then your rights are being observed. And we have this idea in this country that there are rights that we need the government's help to achieve. We need the government to intervene in this, to impose on that. This group asks for the government to make that group stop saying things about this group because that's not right. That's not the conception of rights that we were supposed to have. The conception we're supposed to have is if the government leaves you alone, then your rights are being observed. It is when the government intervenes that is the problem, and you can see that reflected in the comments and the submissions here. But yes, to your larger point, we have a government that has grown beyond its useful limits. The public sector, by some estimates, I saw the other day an estimate that said that the public sector has grown to 40% of the economy of this country. Okay, that is not sustainable. That is one of the reasons that this country is becoming poor. You need more people than that in the public, in the private sector, to make it possible to have a government. We think that money grows on trees, and that the government is the solution to everything, and we're in that trap so deep that we cannot see anything else. That whenever there's a problem, that the only possible solution is more, not less, government programs, rules, taxes, structures. Sometimes, if not always, in this day and age, the solution is less, not more.
This in our broader conversation about freedom of expression, how would you articulate to the average Canadian citizen why hearing people in Ottawa talk so cavalierly about expanding the footprint of the state may be a danger to people being free to articulate themselves, particularly around things where they might disagree with the government and want to be able to express those views?
Yes, well, we're approaching a society in which the government runs the show, period. I mean, it's happened to us slowly and insidiously. It's grown without, actual revolution or anything. It's the way public authorities spread their influence. It happens over time. We have had an administrative state for many, many years, but it's now as big as it has ever been. And by the way, the administrative state is not provided for in our Constitution. It's not prohibited, but it's not provided for. And so the fundamental ideas like the separation of powers between legislature and executive and courts now has been more or less practically put by the wayside. And the bureaucracy now more or less runs the show. And if you think that you live in a free country and the bureaucracy actually runs the show, then you're mistaken. The greatest threat to our liberty now is the administrative state.
There's a line you wrote in an article for the National Post that I'd like to ask you to elaborate on, where you wrote, "We trusted that these institutions," and in institutions you're referring in part to the administrative state, would commit to their own restraint, we have been tragically naive. Can you comment on what restraint means in this context? And again, for the purposes of the freedom of expression, why people need to be concerned about trusting the administrative state to be restrained in its use of power?
Thank you, Mr. Jivani. I'm glad you came back to the topic at hand, and because we were moving away from it.
The entire
Good.
time, actually.
Okay, please, I'll ask the witness to stick to the topic at hand. Thank you.
We've been talking about the topic at hand. You're wrong.
Please, can you go ahead and answer the question?
You're editorializing.
Yeah. So the rule of law is an idea, and the idea is that the state is restrained in all kinds of ways, including the way it restrains our speech. But the rule of law depends upon the people in charge believing in the idea. And now they don't. Now they don't believe the state should be restrained. Now they think the solution to everything is the state. And so when you have conflicts between people who disagree, they both want the state to intervene and make the other guy stop speaking. And
thank you very much. We have gone a minute over time, Mr. Jivani. I'm going to go to the Liberal.